The loss didn't arrive like a sudden storm. It crept in slowly, almost politely, giving small warnings that were easy to dismiss. At first, it looked like nothing more than stress, the kind everyone claims is temporary. A busy phase, a rough patch, something that hard work would eventually fix. The job was the first place where cracks appeared. Deadlines shifted. Promises from management became vague. Contracts were renewed later than expected, then renewed with less security. My cousin noticed it before anyone else, but spoke about it casually, as if it were normal, manageable, unworthy of concern. Instead of slowing down, they worked harder, longer hours, fewer breaks, nights that stretched into early mornings. They told themselves it was temporary, that dedication would protect them. Exhaustion was reframed as ambition, and burnout was worn like proof of commitment. Around the same time, the relationship began to feel strained. Stress has a way of leaking into conversations, even when both people try to keep it contained. Small misunderstandings turned into recurring arguments. Silence replaced ease. Support slowly turned into pressure. My cousin tried to compensate there too. More reassurance, more apologies, more emotional labor. They became the steady one, the calming presence, the person who absorbed tension so the relationship could survive another day. Sleep became irregular. Nights were spent thinking, planning, worrying. Mornings began with fatigue masked by coffee and determination. Friends praised their work ethic. Family admired their resilience. No one questioned the cost. On the surface, everything still functioned. Bills were paid. Obligations were met. Social appearances were maintained. My cousin smiled, laughed at the right moments, and insisted things were under control. That reassurance became automatic, a reflex. Whenever someone asked how they were doing, the answer was always the same. Fine. Busy, but fine. Just tired. Nothing serious. Inside, however, pressure was building. Each day felt heavier than the last. There was no space to rest because rest felt dangerous. Pausing meant thinking, and thinking meant confronting fears they weren't ready to face. The job situation worsened quietly. Reduced hours, delayed payments, subtle shifts in tone from supervisors. My cousin noticed the signs, but told themselves persistence would be rewarded. They had always survived by pushing through before. Financial anxiety followed closely behind. Budgets tightened. Expenses were delayed. Small decisions felt overwhelming because every choice carried consequences. The margin for error disappeared. At home, the relationship reached a fragile balance. Both sides were tired. Conversations circled the same unresolved issues. Love was still there, but it was strained by uncertainty and unmet emotional needs. My cousin became quieter, less expressive, more withdrawn even when physically present. They listened more than they spoke, afraid that honesty might add weight to an already fragile situation. Friends noticed changes, but didn't know how to address them. Invitations were declined politely. Messages were answered later than usual. Isolation began to feel safer than explaining. Then came the breaking point. Not dramatic, not explosive, just one final blow that removed the illusion of control. The job ended abruptly. No safety net, no transition period, just an email and a brief explanation that felt painfully impersonal. That loss alone would have been heavy, but it didn't stand alone. Almost immediately after, the relationship collapsed under the accumulated strain. There was no single fight, no clear villain, just exhaustion, disappointment, and the realization that love wasn't enough to fix everything. Financial stress turned into something darker. Shame, embarrassment, fear of being judged, fear of being pitied, fear of admitting that things had fallen apart. Phone calls started going unanswered, not out of rudeness, but avoidance. My cousin didn't know what to say anymore, didn't know how to explain a reality that felt like personal failure. Family dinners became uncomfortable. Conversations tiptoed around the obvious. Everyone sensed something was wrong, but no one knew how to address it without reopening wounds. My cousin attended fewer gatherings. When they did show up, they stayed quiet, left early, and avoided questions. Their absence became noticeable, but still unexplained. The fallout wasn't just practical. It wasn't only about money or employment or a broken relationship. It was emotional, psychological, deeply internal. Identity began to unravel. For years, my cousin had defined themselves by usefulness, by contribution, by being needed. Now, stripped of those roles, they felt empty and exposed. Mornings became difficult, motivation faded, simple tasks felt overwhelming. The energy that once fueled survival mode was gone, placed by a heavy sense of defeat. Shame kept them isolated. Asking for help felt impossible. Explaining the situation felt humiliating. Silence felt safer than vulnerability. We tried to reach out, but carefully, too carefully. We didn't want to pressure them. We didn't want to say the wrong thing. That caution, though well-intentioned, created distance. Messages went unanswered for days, sometimes weeks. When responses came, they were short and neutral, polite, but distant. My cousin wasn't pushing us away out of anger. They were protecting what little dignity they felt they had left. Admitting the depth of the loss meant admitting they couldn't carry everything alone anymore. Time passed strangely. Days blurred together. Progress felt impossible to measure. From the outside, it looked like stagnation. From the inside, it was survival at its most basic level. The hardest part was watching someone who once held everything together struggle to hold themselves together. There was no manual for how to help without making it worse. We didn't know when to intervene or when to wait. Whether encouragement would feel supportive or dismissive. Whether silence would feel respectful or abandoning. My cousin's withdrawal wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, gradual, almost polite. They faded from routines, conversations, and expectations without making noise. And that quiet collapse was the most devastating part. Because there was no single moment to respond to, no clear crisis to rally around, just a slow unraveling that left everyone unsure of where to begin. Looking back, the story unfolds with painful clarity. The warnings were there, the effort, the overcompensation, the exhaustion disguised as strength. The rise was real. So was the resilience. But resilience without support has limits. And when those limits were finally reached, the fall wasn't loud or public. It was silent, isolating, and deeply human.